Welcome, everybody, to another spectacular episode of the Game Informer Show. This is the show where we inform you about games. It's all in the name. My name is Ben Reeves, speaking of names, and I'm joined by a couple of other names here. First and foremost, Marcus Stewart.
Hey, thanks for having me, Ben.
That's right. Brian Shea.
Hey, I know you didn't have a choice, but thanks for having me as well.
That's right. Somehow you're here. Alex Stadnick.
What is in a name? Hello, friends.
That's right. And Dan Tack, you also have a name, right?
Yeah, it's freaking great to be here, by the way. What a lovely day. What a bunch of lovely group of gamers we got here today.
Gamer boys.
Lovely group of gamer boys. And we're here to talk about some of the games we've been playing. We have a full show, probably a bigger playlist this week, because it turns out summer doldrums, they just don't exist, right?
Thing of the past.
Forget about those. Yeah. Games are all the time now, it feels like. So this month especially feels like we're getting hit this week. And we want to talk about what we're playing on the playlist. Talk about that for a setup. Why am I bothering to set this up so much? We do it every week. Marcus, what have you been playing?
I just finished reviewing a really, really good little game called Death's Door that is out now. It is made by Acid Nerve, who some may remember as the developer of Titan Souls, which released, like 6 years ago now. And it is a isometric action game where you play as a little crow with a sword. And you are a reaper of souls. You work for this kind of bureaucratic organization of crows who literally kind of govern death, and their job is to go out, get the souls of someone that passed away, and bring them back and store them. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of your.
And this is based on reality, right?
Yes, we'll be seeing this little guy eventually in our lifetime, or I guess we wouldn't. We'd be dead, right?
Yeah, yeah, Brian, very soon, I think.
Fingers crossed, man.
Really hoping for it. You probably don't want to see him, honestly, I guess. But
yeah, I got a chance to play a little bit of this, and I think Alex, you've been playing too? I'm having fun, but I know, Marcus, you played a lot more than I have. It feels like the combat feels pretty good. How is it through the long haul? Does it hold together?
Yeah, like the combat is pretty simple on its face. It's just kind of basic hack and slash. You've got a bow and arrow for some range attacks, and then eventually you acquire other abilities like a fireball. There's like a cool hook shot that you can get. And I think that it shines in the combat encounters. I think the game does a good job of forcing you to engage with everything that you have, because they'll throw mobs of enemies of all different types. There'll be like wizards that shoot little elemental fireballs. There'll be like these weird giant beasts that jump around and throw their horns like boomerangs. And it's always like a little sampler of like each type of thing. So you're kind of juggling like, okay, this guy is rushing me with his melee attack, but then I'm getting shot from afar. But then I also have to dodge this jumping guy. So how do I combine my abilities to that? And so I think it gets the most out of its like relatively simple arsenal. I think the combat feels really good, like attacking and dodging and chaining combos. Like you're not doing like crazy complicated combos, but I think that what you're doing feels good. And you can also mix things up by finding different melee weapons. Like there's these daggers that allow you to attack faster at the expense of dealing less damage. There's like a big hammer that's really powerful, but you can only get like 2 hits in succession.
I found the umbrella.
Yeah,
the umbrella. Joke weapon or something, because it does half damage, and I can't figure out what other perks it does.
Yeah, I think the umbrella is just crap.
It stops the rain. It says it right on the item, Ben.
Fair. I mean, does rain hurt you? Maybe I haven't encountered rain yet.
No, there's no rain. It does look cool when you walk around with the umbrella open, though. There's something about it. You're like, I can get on board with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, if nothing else, maybe it's like a way to handicap yourself. Like it's like a weird little hard mode almost. But yeah, I think the game is pretty challenging. You know, in terms of how many enemies they throw at you, but not in a way that feels like overwhelming or bad. Like you're gonna die a lot, but at least for me, it didn't feel like discouraging. You know, you're getting mad like, oh dang, but you always kind of realize what you did wrong.
And it feels like there's no real checkpoints necessarily, but you kind of pop in back. I mean, there's doors.
Yeah, the doors,
quick travel doors, let's say. So you pop back there. And the travel back is never that bad, because as you travel, you're unlocking shortcuts. So you always have a shortcut that you can just get right back to where you were pretty quickly.
Yeah. And you can always get the excuse of like farming souls, because you don't always have to fight everything. Like you can just speed past a lot of things. There are times it'll lock you in a little arena and you got to clear out enemies, but for the most part, if you really want to get back, you can just roll past everyone. What I do love about the combat is that the range attacks, you have a limited number of shots for like your arrow, which is the first thing you get, and the only way to refill that is by landing melee strikes. And so it's this fun little dance of like, I'm gonna fire off a full salvo of arrows, but dang, I can't lean on that forever. I got to get in there and actually get some hits in and then back off and keep shooting. And I think that loop feeds into each other in a really fun way, especially in the boss battles, which I think are the best combat encounters in this game, which isn't surprising because if anyone's played Titan Souls, that entire game is just a big boss rush. And so that expertise definitely carries over. Like I love the bosses in this game. I don't know how many of you guys have faced, but there's like a cool frog knight that I had a great time. He's like jumps around, destroys platforms, and does other really cool things I don't want to spoil. There's one late game fight that I thought was super fun that I can't talk about. I really want to get you guys' thoughts on. It's like one of the last fights before you get to the actual final fight.
I did fight the first boss. He's like this giant castle or something, kind of moves around.
Yeah, it's like the one you've seen in the trailers. Like, yeah, literally just a giant castle.
Yeah, and that was a simple fight, but it was still pretty fun because of the dynamic you mentioned of like I was down to like one sliver of health left and I had like one hit left in me.
Yeah,
and I was like wailing on melee and then like kept bouncing back and like doing long distance attacks, and I had like my last long distance attack. I was like, man, I don't know if I can handle going toe to toe with him too much more, and I killed him on my last ranged attack before I had to go in again and melee with him, tussle with him. So that was kind of fun. Like, oh, I pulled it off.
Yeah, and what's cool is that there's none of the enemies have health bars. They're only in damage indicators that they gradually accumulate kind of scratches and cracks on their models. So when you see an enemy that's just like looks like they're just going to explode at any moment, like when you finally get that last hit in, it feels so satisfying. And I think that's just a cool damage indicator in general. But one thing I want to make clear too is I think when you see this game, a lot of people assume it's either like a roguelike or like a run-based game. It's not. It's closer to like a traditional Zelda game. Like there's a big overworld you return to that serves as a junction point to these different biomes, and they each have their own central dungeon. A lot of the paths are ability gated, so you'll see like, oh, there's a cracked wall. Wonder I got to do there. But other areas are more observational and puzzle based. Like you really got to keep an eye out for like, there was like one hedge maze area that it wasn't until the end of the game that I didn't realize that there's opening in the hedges that lead you to different paths because it's so subtle. But the game also hints at it at a certain point too, and it didn't take me till the end that I realized that's what they were referring to. But
yeah, you mentioned like Zelda, which I definitely get that. I also get like Soulsborne vibe from it, like just because all the shortcuts and whatnot. And I know we mentioned Titan Souls, right? That's from the maker of Titan Souls, so they kind of wear that inspiration on their sleeve a little bit. I know. I'm curious, Dan, your thoughts on it because you've had a little bit of chance to play this, right?
Yeah, I'm through the first major boss. It's really divided. For as much as it's not like a Souls game, it's really divided into sort of a soul structure where you have different lords in different kingdoms you've got to go beat for their literal giant souls, they're called in the game. So yeah, it's kind of weird. And there's other very big, obvious inspirations that have been taken from the Souls series. And I mean, it's a game about dodging and attacking, which is, that is it, right? You want me to tell you what a Souls game is? It's about dodge, rolling, and hitting things, right? I'm just kidding. That's a joke, everybody. Before you kill me in the comments. It's a joke. There's some Souls inspiration here for sure.
Are you having a good time? You think you'll finish this one?
Yeah, I'm gonna finish it. It doesn't seem like it's gonna be a long jaunt, and I'm in for what's there right now. Like I said, I already beat one of the major pillars. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but like it's divided very cleanly. So, and I'm just like rocking through. It's like hey, puzzle, hey, cool. There's like some Spirited Away but evil stuff here. That's really neat. I like that. I like neat things, and the game's got lots of like neat nods. It's got cool music. You get to play as a sword-wielding Borb. Come on. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. And the dungeons are pretty cool, too. Like, I think the dungeons are pretty well designed. They don't overstay their welcome, which can be a problem in some games. There aren't, like, a ton of them. And like you were saying, Dan, like, the game isn't that long. You can get through the main game between, like, 8 to 10 hours. I clocked in about 11 with, like, 84% completion. But what's cool is that after you beat the game, a post-game kind of opens up, and a lot of the you're going to notice there's still a lot of things that you haven't been able to solve, even with all your abilities, and that all opens up in the post game in a surprising way. Like, there's a lot of stuff after the credits that you can't get to until you finish that last boss.
Yeah,
Oh, that's wild.
I think I am going to finish it, Ben. Like, there's just so much stuff to play right now that it's kind of ridiculous, but I kind of enjoy the smaller stuff. But as far as the Souls thing goes, just, certainly has some inspirations from it, but it's not like, oh, you like Souls, you're going to like this. It's not a direct one-to-one. But
no, it's not.
I would think that there's a good degree of overlap. I'll say that much.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Alex, you gonna finish the thing? You're having a good time, right?
Yeah, I'm really loving my time with it. It's weird because I think I either talked about it on one of our videos or on social, but like I didn't know this game existed till like a week ago. And then I saw it and I was like, oh, this is perfect for me. The Zelda puzzles, like combat, I'm all in on that. And I agree with everyone. I think it takes the best parts of what I like about some of the Souls stuff in Zelda and combines it in a nice way. I think the other thing I want to highlight is the world and tone is very interesting to me because, we talked about names in the beginning, right? It's literally in the name, Death's Door. And it is very focused on death and dying and stuff like that, but not in a morbid way. There's a respect for the cycle of life in it with also some humor. So it's not as dour. And I mean, it helps that you're a crow, you're a cute little crow hacking and slashing. But
he is pretty adorable. I actually thought he was a penguin at first, just because of like the perspective and how he looks.
Kind of got like that white tuft on his neck too.
Yeah. He's cute though.
Yeah. But I really like the world and the weirdness of the characters and combining all that with what y'all have already talked about. I'm all in, and I'm very excited to keep playing through it.
Nice. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, Death's Door. There's an NGT online if you want to check it out in action. You can also read Marcus's review. It's on the site now. Marcus, what'd you give it?
I gave it a 9.
Ooh.
Boom.
Yeah.
Spicy and bold. That's like a jalapeno with a little habanero kick. I like it.
Oh, yeah.
I had a wonderful time with this game.
Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, check it out. Death's Door. It's a fun time. Speaking of games that are probably not fun times. No, this transition is going horribly. But Dan, what have you been playing?
Well, I've been all over the place, Ben. But I think what we're going to talk about here today is a little game I like to call New World.
You just like to call it that?
Yeah, a little game I like to call New World. This is an Amazon Games MMORPG. That's right. They are still getting made today, although they're not the once king of all PC gaming genres as they once were. Is this like Amazon just like being out of touch? Like, hey, we want to get into games, which felt like a move they made 10 years ago, right? And then they're just like, let's make an MMO, and then never checked back in the game world to see if MMOs were still popular. I mean, MMOs can still exist. If anything, playing through this beta proves that there's still a lot of very cool things about MMOs that, frankly, are not being explored today because they're tough. Let's get this straight first. Like, MMOs are one of the hardest things to make, because it's not just what you're building and how it all works together, but you also need a player base that especially for a game like this. So let's get into it. This is the beta. The game itself launches next month at the end on August 31st. So the beta here, we're basically getting the full experience. Anyone who's just like, oh, it's just beta, come on. There's a month to release. There's not going to be a whole lot of changes here realistically. They can get really useful feedback to change things along the way, but what you see is what you get. The old it's beta thing is not really going to fly here. So this game, wow. So the first thing that I recall when I was a young MMO player was this game called Shadowbane. Okay, you may not remember it. It was a full PvP, everything player crafted cities. Everything was guild v guild. You'd try to take over the world with your guild. So very PvP centric. You see shades of that here, actually, and these are kind of rare. These sort of, you pick a faction, Ben. All right, so you're in the new world, and there's wolves and bears after you. Also, you have to pick a faction, so you're against 2 other factions. 3-faction game, right? So now you can turn your PvP flag off, but you're not going to have a good time. What are the factions? What are their names? So it's the Marauders, the Covenant, and the Syndicate. Okay, and I picked the Syndicate. Sounds pretty cool. Oh, you Syndicate people. Well, they have purple gear. Okay, I went with the Fashion Souls choice. Okay, who wants to run around wearing green stuff like a Marauder or yellow stuff like a Covenant member? Come on, purple. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So you can pick one of these. Now you don't have to fight other players. All right, but if you don't, you're really missing out on like a huge crux of the game, I think, like to engage in this, whether you're out alone or whether with a couple of friends or whether you're out with your company, that's a guild, and you're trying to like take territory over. This is a huge component of the game that you can ignore, but I wouldn't. You get really great rewards, and it really makes the game feel a lot more alive having these interactions. Sure, if you're just trying to get like a quest done, and you can turn your PvP flag off and go do it safely. But when you're just like roaming the world doing your sort of procedurally generated quests, like, hey, kill 5 of these, loot 5 of these, you might as well have it on. Just get in there. And it's really neat to have these interactions where you meet, like, if I'm a Syndicate player, maybe I'm out and I get attacked by a couple of Marauders. Maybe a couple other Syndicate players show up. We have ourselves a little skirmish. You never know. And that can evolve into a full-scale territory war. But I want to talk about, these PvP components, you don't see these too much in MMOs today. They're mostly theme park MMOs where it's like, you're going to go to a dungeon. You're going to kill the boss. You're going to maybe get loot. You're going to do that again. And then you're going to go to a harder dungeon. You're going to kill the boss. You're going to get loot. And then you're going to do that again. And that's,
You call it a theme. So I'm not familiar with the term theme park MMO. You're just saying that because it's like, here's a destination. You go do this ride.
So it's
pretty
like
much on rails.
Exactly. So you're going around, a theme park of attractions, essentially, and you're going on different rides, doing that experience. This one, more open-ended and has a lot of player input to that, right? Your game is going to be drastically different based on the actions of your fellow players. And that's more than one way here, too. This game features a big focus on a player economy, player crafting, all this stuff. Every item in the game is either an enemy drop or a crafted item. So you're out there scouring for like saltpeter to make bullets for your gun. That's what I'm doing right now anyway.
So who's this game for? Is this for like MMO fans or is this for like survival game fans?
Right. And that's the question. And we know this game has had a lot of different vision changes during development. So I don't know. I think it's trying to please all audiences at this point, at a loss to itself from that vision of being that survival PvP game. And now it has sort of theme park elements there if you want them. I haven't done any of them yet, but there are like dungeons and stuff. And battlegrounds, so you go into a sort of an instanced area where you're going to fight consensually instead of taking that survival game. Again, it feels like two different games, or maybe many more than two different games rolled into this burrito. And I'm not sure if the end taste is going to be amazing. But the stuff that I do like, I love like the feeling that you're on the frontier, you're crafting your own stuff, you're out there killing a turkey for some rations. This stuff's like, it feels good to get out there and just like take down some trees, kill some wolves, create.
I'm going to do that this weekend.
Yeah, I know, right?
Go out in my backyard, see what I can do.
Me too. Let's meet up. We can do it together. We can form a team. We can call ourselves the Marauders. Jump into your neighbor's backyard.
How about the Marauding Covenant?
Yeah, we're your best purple.
We can jump into your neighbor's backyard and we'll see if they want to play. Running around in loincloths, getting into it.
That's right.
It'll be fun.
Can't wait to check the news.
Dogs. Yeah.
On the opposite end of things here, I'm talking up some of the good parts of the game. I love all this stuff, right? And maybe that whole PvP-centric territory war MMORPG is something that the world doesn't need anymore. I don't know. Maybe that's definitely a game that I'm interested in playing, though. On the other end of things, though, here, the combat is definitely one of the weak points, in my opinion. After you play the game for just a few hours, you have basically all the moves you're ever going to have. And I'm sure someone in the comments can be like, no, Dan, you get like more passives and special ways to use the stuff you already have. Like, whatever, okay? You got 3 buttons, all right? And it's like that, while it feels pretty cool at first to like block and hit back and like learn the timing on enemies, it feels like there's not going to be a lot of depth in that combat system, especially when you're doing like the theme park rides. It's okay in PvP, right? Who cares if you only have 3 moves, if it's just like trying to position and like fake somebody out, make them jump off a cliff, or like, get your rifle going. That's all fun, well and good. But I think the enemy, the combat feels really, really weak in comparison to the other aspects of the game. And that's probably the most central pillar of any MMORPG today, right? Is the combat. You're going to be doing tons of it.
We just talked about Titan Soul, or no, Death's Door, excuse me, which basically that's like 3 button attacks, right? Like that's not.
It is.
So do you just think for MMO you need more depth than?
I think we're comparing.
It has to have
here,
more.
Right?
Sure. I'm just curious for like, say somebody's a newbie and like, hey, I want to see what MMOs are all about. And everybody's talking about New World.
Well, this is a weird. This would be a very interesting experience for somebody's first MMO, given like the other MMOs that are in the conversation today.
Uh-huh.
World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy 14, for instance, those are both very theme park MMOs, right? You're never going to be in a situation where you're like scrounging for food, making a campsite, and fighting other players in the open world. I mean, you can. It's just not the crux of everything, which it is here. You're actually fighting for territory with your faction. That's a different way to play an MMO than most today. Again, back in the day, there were lots of games like this, like Shadowbane being the one that comes to mind the most. Look that one up. Like the whole game basically. So that game basically capitulated because guilds like mine literally took over the server, and nobody else could play because we just kill you. And
Okay, so do you think that's why these games don't exist anymore?
I think there's a really hot attraction to it out the gates for this kind of stuff. Like, oh, it's so cool. We're on the frontier. Everything's new. Everything's fresh. Everything's wild. I'm getting my crafting skills up. I'm making my own ammo. How's this going to look 40 hours from now when I'm doing dungeons with lackluster combat and I have to go forge all my bullets before I even do a dungeon run? Am I going to feel good about that? Is it going to feel new and exciting like it is going out in the territory with a handful of bullets and a rusty longsword? I don't think it is. But
I'll ask my grandpa. Hold on.
We're gonna get your grandpa for that backyard romp that we're doing. We're gonna call ourselves the Marauders. We're gonna roam around your backyard. All right, it's gonna be great.
Just LARPing.
Actually, he's roaming around my backyard right now. I don't know what he's doing out there.
He's getting a head start on that faction.
Yeah.
All right. So there's like a lot of different angles to approach this game with, and by the way, I want to say I'm really happy that the MMO genre is still getting play. That people are still attempting it. It's very difficult. I know that. And this game has been through turmoil. Amazon Games has been looking for a win here for a while, with Breakaway and Crucible. Is this going to be the win? It's hard to say from my beta impressions. I think the combat is eventually going to be a pretty tough thing to take in this. But I love some of the more novel concepts that are in play here as well, just because we don't see them anymore, even though they may have been in vogue back when every other computer game was an MMORPG.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's fair. Well, new world. Maybe you'd be into it if you like crafting games. Is that what I'm taking away?
This is a game that you want to talk to your friends who are playing other games with and be like, do you want to go form a company and take over some territory?
Yeah.
I cannot see you playing this game from the standpoint that you would play WoW or Final Fantasy 14.
You want to have friends.
This is a group centric game about interaction with other players in various degrees.
Okay.
This is not a game where you're just like, I'm gonna go farm a boss for a drop. And I'm not making this sound exciting. It can be exciting. Dungeon crawling is a lot of fun, depending on what your preferences are. But I don't think you're going to get the enjoyment out of this game if you want something like WoW or Final Fantasy 14. This is not going to do it for you. Those aspects that those games do very well are not done well here.
What is the?
Okay.
Do you know off the top of your head? Do you know what the pricing model is? Like, is it $60 up front or is it sub model?
Right now, all we know is the box cost. We do not know if there will be additional value-added services.
Okay.
We don't have that. That information will be available post-launch, right?
Okay.
Yeah, and right now it's in beta, so
we're in beta for a couple of weeks, and then it's going to go silent, and then it's going to come out at the end of August. Yeah,
sure. So coming out. We streamed it the other day. Dan, you streamed it. The archive should be on the site if people want to check that out. And also, you're working on some impressions, which might be out by the end of the week.
I mean, as you can tell, I'm formulating them here in real time with you, Ben, as we talk about our backyard soirees.
That's right.
But yes, those will be out by the end of the week. Yeah, you'll get my full, highly analytical impressions of where we're at right now with that one.
Very nice. You've been playing anything else, Dan?
Yeah, Death's Door.
Death's Door. Who can forget? Oh, so good. Brian, you've been playing Death's Door?
You can't really say I've been playing it because I started it up last night, and then before I encountered a single enemy, I got pulled to do something else.
So you're sort of like sitting at the edge of Death's Door.
Yes, watched it, waiting to knock.
The door is ajar.
Yeah. Okay. What have you been doing instead?
Oh, I've been playing Returnal. I've been playing a little bit of the Overwatch seasonal event, and I've been playing Cris Tales, the new role-playing game that is like an homage to classic RPGs of yesteryear. And it is a gorgeous game. It's a hand-drawn aesthetic, very smooth animations, very appealing environment and character designs. And the turn-based combat is pretty good. So I'm enjoying my time with it overall. It has some really cool like time traveling mechanics built into both the environmental puzzle solving and also the combat system. So that's kind of cool. So one of the characters she has crystals that she can choose to warp. Like, so you're in the middle, and then on either side you have enemies. And on one side, so your left, you can send enemies to the past, and on your right, you can send enemies to the future. So there are different like effects that can happen. So like, say you have an enemy that has like a really strong metal shield. You can use one of your party members to cast a water spell on them, and then they're soaked is like their status. And then from there, that guy can either cast an electricity effect or a spell, and it'll amplify their damage, or you can use Crisbell, the main character, her ability to send that enemy to the future, and it will rust their shield and have them have defense down because they're soaking wet, and you accelerated time on their side of the battlefield. So there's some pretty cool stuff there, but also like if you send a beast forward in time, they might become an older, stronger version of themselves. So it's kind of a give and take. You can also do that with like poison effects. So like if you poison an enemy with one of your party members, they can also the poison will be more powerful on them, or like you can make it so like the spell accelerates in its effect. So there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with that. And then sending them back in time, like sometimes it'll break their temporal limit, so it'll actually do like extra damage because like, oh, they didn't even exist at this time, like you took them back to, but they'll still be on the field. It's not like an instant kill. And it'll also make them like a younger version of themselves. So they might be weaker, more like less HP, less attack power. So you kind of have to be strategic with it. And then the same thing works with that, where like if you send them back in time, cast a spell on them, and then bring them back to present time, it will have accelerated that.
So you can't send an enemy back in time and like turn him into an egg or something like that?
Not that I've seen so far. But like, you can turn like an adult wolf into like a baby wolf or a pup, and then it's a lot less powerful, a lot less HP.
Then you have to kill a puppy and then
murdering babies.
My goodness! All right, I'm out. I'm gonna go hunt turkeys.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool because I've been playing it too, and like the enemy types will come in different ages. So you have to keep in mind, like, okay, this guy looks like he's middle-aged, so if I send him to the past, he might get younger. But it's like, oh, this guy's already old, so like I can't age him up anymore, so I can't take advantage of that.
Or you don't want to send the old guy back to like his athletic prime, and it's like
you don't want to do
enemy.
That. Exactly.
That's interesting. Okay. So and you can do that stuff outside of combat too, like
in certain environments, like if you're in a town and you're looking like it always keeps like a triangular design in the middle, and like on the right you can kind of see like the future, on the left you can see the past, and in the middle is where you are currently, and you have a talking frog companion, which really I caught Dan's attention with that, and he can go back and forth in past and future. So there's one where it's like you're trying to harvest this plant that has long been extinct, so you have to get that and then bring it back to the present. Or there's another one where it's like you're trying to affect the future because like this one town has a problem with like rot in the buildings. So you have to choose which building you want to save. So I saved like the apothecary, so that made it so that like I could buy stuff from there. Whereas the other building, I think it was like a blacksmith or something like that, rotted and no longer exists now. So you have to be that's just a very rudimentary example of how you can use it. And then there's another one where it's like this guy's looking for flowers. It's like a side quest where the guy's looking for flowers to memorialize his brother, I think, who was killed by like wildlife. And so you can go back in the past in this one town and retrieve roses, and you bring them to him. I haven't completed the quest yet, but I'm assuming he'll give me something for doing this. Otherwise I will be like, wow, that was a substantial waste of time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not the satisfaction of memorializing his dead brother.
No.
Yeah, helping him as a person. Question for both of you. I've gotten to play this a little bit. What he says coming at me. What they use the aesthetic a lot, right? Of having the past on the left, future on the right of the screen in this triangular division. Does that get old? Or have you not got to the point where it's become an issue? Does it work well in the context?
I like it because in one of the towns, for example, you can see that like I don't want to spoil too much, but like there's a clear bad future that is currently happening right now. Like the town is just completely underwater. And
our future.
It's like, yeah, in the future. So like by doing stuff in the present or the past, you can actively try to prevent that future from happening. And from my understanding, every town that you would go to has multiple endings and multiple futures that you can affect and like steer the course towards a better future or a worse future, depending on what you do in the past and the present. So you can kind of always have on your mind, like, all right, well, the actions I'm doing here have not yet made it so that this is a better future for this town, or the actions I've done haven't completely messed up the future for this town. So it's nice in that regard. And you could also even see, like, as you're walking past characters, like if you walk past a person on the street, you can see them like in their future form, present form, and past form, which is kind of cool as well. And, you know, there's definite like, you know, kind of environmental storytelling through that, where it's like you can see how a person was in their youth, how they are currently, and how they're going to be if their present course continues down the path that they're already on. So that's kind of a cool touch as well. And I'm interested to see how they play with that more and more as I get deeper into the game.
Yeah, it's like some foreshadowing too. Like there was one character I saw who, like, in the present day, she's like a secretary, but then I saw her in the future and she looks significantly cooler and more imposing. And it's like, what is that all about? So like, I want to know more.
Yeah,
about
and there's
that.
another character where it's like in the past. This is not super late. This is maybe like 5 or 6 hours into the game. Like, there's another character where you're in a town and like you see her when she's like younger and she's like protesting like injustices and everything, and then like in her current state, she's like married to like the dictator. It's like, oh no, what happened?
Wow, there's a story there. That's interesting.
Yeah, and like it's one of like the main character. It's a person that has a close relationship with one of the main characters. So like, I'm sure I will learn more about this relationship.
Yeah, this game sounds cool. I like the art style of it too. So if you're in the mood for a classic JRPG, because that kind of has like JRPG feel to it, right? Where it's turn-based combat.
Definitely, yeah. It's basically that classic turn-based RPG, which I love that those mechanics.
Yeah, maybe we shouldn't even call them JRPGs because there's
this was actually
this isn't from Japan.
Yeah, it's definitely inspired by the JRPGs though that you remember.
The studio's Colombian, actually.
And I
That's
learned recently a lot of the landmarks you see in the game are actually based off of a lot of Colombian landmarks out there. So that's kind of cool too that they were able to bring their home into the game.
Oh, that's neat. Yeah, that's always fun to see play a game from a country I'm not super familiar with. So cool. I know you're still working. It sounds like the game is pretty big and long. So I know you're still working on a review, Brian, but you do have some impressions up on the site if people want to check that out.
For sure. Yeah. GameInformer.com, baby.
It sounds good. It sounds like you would recommend this one.
I would recommend it. Again, stay tuned for the full review, hopefully in the next week or so, but we'll see how it goes. I'm not entirely sure how long the game is. It's an RPG, so it could be forever. Who knows?
Yeah, I think they said it's not overly long. I think it's about 20 to 30 hours, I believe.
Yeah, I've heard, I think 30 to 40 hours but again, different play styles can be different lengths. So we'll
That's
see.
right. And no judgment here on length of anything.
Size doesn't matter.
Yeah. You know what game I want to talk about? Psychonauts 2. Have any of you guys played that?
I have.
No.
Actually.
Can't say I have, actually.
Oh, Alex has. Well, that doesn't help my transition at all. Dan and Brian, have you played it?
No.
All right. Why don't you guys get out of here? All right. Glad those guys are gone. See, Marcus, Alex are still here, but joined by a new person, Blake Hester.
Hello.
How's it going, man?
Thank you so much, Ben, for having me. It's great to see all of you and great to see all the people in the comments that are always very nice to me.
That's right. You can see them right now.
Yeah, they look terrible.
You have great eyesight.
Actually, I really do. I've never had a cavity, never had eye problems.
That's not eye problem.
I'm just telling you, I am in peak physical form.
That's why he's never had a cavity, because his eyesight's so good he can spot the like damaging food for his teeth. He's like,
he keeps going to the eye doctor. Is like, hey doc, do I have any cavities? And the doctor's like, what? No.
I'm in peak.
Will you pay me more if I'd say yes?
I'm in peak physical form. If
you're
you want to
saying
know
you're
how to take care of your
peaking
body,
right now.
I'm peaking. This is my peak. I'm 27.
Right.
It's all downhill from here.
Have a good ride. If the slope is steep, it'll be a fun ride.
Go all the way
Usually.
down. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I guess. Depends what's down there.
Scary but fun.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we brought you on, Blake, because we wanted to talk about your health, but also because we want to talk about Psychonauts 2.
Oh, well, what do you want to know about my health?
No, we've covered it. Your Game
I wanted
Informer's
to know
Adonis.
if you had any eye cavities. Yeah, but which we got through that.
I had cancer twice. That was kind of wild.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, pretty nuts. I don't know
Peak
if y'all.
physical condition.
Well, I don't have it anymore.
That's true. You got rid of it. You don't
Yeah.
have it.
True.
So,
Congrats, man.
shouts out to me. Yeah, I played Psychonauts 2. There was a recent preview event. It was really cool because we got to play a lot of the game, which was nice. To kind of, I don't know if this was the specific intention, but like Psychonauts 2, by nature of its story, there's a lot going on. So getting to see multiple worlds was nice. I don't think in a preview setting, if they just gave us one level, it would really convey what that game actually is. But they gave us, I want to say, like 4 to 6 hours of that game. It's like the entire opening, plus the first main brain level, which is the Hollis Forsyth level that we covered in our cover story, and then 2 later levels. I'm not exactly sure where they fall in the game, but yeah, it was really cool, and it kind of has. I was talking to a good friend of mine, former Game Informer intern, Michael Larry, after my preview came out, and he called it the Double Fine problem of an amazing world with frustrating gameplay. And I think that's even the headline I went with, because the world of Psychonauts 2 is amazing. It is beautiful. It looks great. I was playing it on a base Xbox, and the thing, I mean, not that that's a of a console by any means, but like it looked fantastic at like all the levels, the cutscenes, everything looked great. The imagination behind each world, we talked to them a little bit. I don't know if this made it into any stories about how they did like for each level they kind of started from square one and did kind of like a pre-production phase for all of them. That
we talk a little bit in our cover story, yeah. And I think I want to say we did a thing online about it, but it is an interesting process because they had to start over from scratch basically because they had so many unique mechanics in each level.
That feels, you can feel that when you play, because yeah, I guess the simplest way to say is like ideas or designs don't feel like, oh, this is just a different color palette on the same thing I've already done. Like that all is really good. But it's just the issue I kept running up against is the game is never as tight as you want it to be. And in a platformer, especially one like Psychonauts 2, which is it's not like soul crushingly hard, but it has a challenge, like a skill curve to it. And the difficulty isn't the issue. It's when the game doesn't match with tight mechanics. You get what I'm saying?
Yep. Yeah.
Like,
it doesn't, it's not fun difficult.
It's like the Uncharted 2 problem where I am pointing my stick straight and Nathan Drake is now jumping slightly to the right, and I have failed this jump because of that. That's not a me problem. That's a game problem. And I think this game is kind of, in what I've played, rife with those issues. Rife with those issues, doesn't matter.
Yeah. I think both work.
It just like, and I hate to compare games from different developers and publishers and ostensibly different budgets, but I'm going to do it anyway. Coming right off Ratchet and Clank, the newest one, which feels extremely tight. Psychonauts 2, I just don't think is there. And it's a bummer to play a game where I'm so enamored with the world and on first blush want to be in this world, but the game is fighting me and making me not care anymore. and that's what I kept running against. Which I don't know. It's like I was very conflicted writing my preview because I think I was pretty down on the game, but it comes out next month and I'm going to play it. You know what I'm saying? Because
why do you think that is? Do you think it's just like that world building and like, Tim Schafer's humorous writing? Like that's just enough to pull you through?
The game is very well written, for sure. I think it's enough to get me through it, but I do worry that, like, I don't know, as the game progresses, if those frustrations, especially when things get more complex, like if they're going to just be exacerbated. You know what I'm saying?
Does it feel like, as you're saying, because everything you're saying almost sounds like you could be talking about the first game and I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Yeah. And I love that first game, but I also have not played it since 2005, whenever it launched.
I played that game this year, and I'll say it's not that rough.
No.
Okay.
The first one isn't?
I was going to say, because when you compare it to the Ratchet and Clank, which also feels like that game is super tight, and I'm a huge fan of that series, but it's like, oh, this feels like a PS2 era platformer, but like polished up to the nines. And it seems like and then what you're saying about Psychonauts 2 is like, oh, this feels like that old game, but maybe not quite.
Yeah,
it's better.
It's not as rough as Psychonauts 1, for sure.
Absolutely
but
not.
In terms of ostensibly big budget platformer in 2021, it's not anywhere close to, I know this is 2D, but like Ori or Ratchet and Clank, like it is not that precise and that tight.
But
I think people are gonna love it. I think people are gonna be psyched on it, if you will.
Yeah, it's weird. I'm thinking to myself of like, well,
they'll not hate it,
or like you said, the story will be enough, because I know a lot of people that they got through that game for the same reason of like, I love the world and the characters and the story, and like the platforming is like not great, but it's good enough to get through it. And I wish the platforming was like excellent, but it's like, okay, if even for me as a fan, it's like, all right, as long as it's better than that first game, then that might be enough. Like that passes my bar of where it needed to be.
It does feel like there was an era like PS1, PS2 where you could play a game and there you would bounce from like one crazy activity to the next, and it was like very like different activities. And games don't do that anymore, which I kind of miss. And it sounds like at least they're shooting for that. At least they're like going for like, let's give you a bunch of interesting, wildly different like mechanics and actions to do. And it's a shame that they're not hitting the mark with that. But also it's probably a sign that like, well, yeah, it's hard to like make 10 games in one. Like you can't like make a game and have that much diverse content. And
well, it takes two.
Have it not really well. Okay, well, I stand corrected. You can do it.
It can
or
be
is
done.
what I'm trying to say.
Also, it's worth saying Psychonauts 2 has been delayed multiple times and in development for like 6 years at this point.
Oh yeah.
So like, there's definitely been some time put into this scope. You know what I'm saying?
And we talked to them for a cover story a few months back. And one of the things they kept saying is like, yeah, when Microsoft bought us, that gave us like extra time to put into the game. And we brought boss battles back. And I'm like, well, I wonder if that was the right call, or I wonder if they should have taken that time and money instead and then just like polished up the rest of the game instead of adding boss battles.
Like,
fought 3 bosses. They're fine. Nothing to write home about. They look great. They're just like, hit the weak point 3 times, rinse and repeat type things. Not super engaging, but actually that said, and the Compton's cookout level, you can read in my preview on GameInformer.com, that boss fight's real pain in the ass. Sucks. It's bad. Has really bad checkpointing. But the other 2 were like, mid level, if you will. Looked cool.
For sure.
Man. I mean, it helps that this game, if nothing else, like it is a Game Pass like day one.
Yeah. I definitely recommend people check it out if they're interested in it. I think a lot of people are really gonna find a lot to love. I think even though I was frustrated with it, I found a lot to love.
Go
ahead.
Sorry, no. Finish your sentence, and I want to jump in.
Yeah, I do want to stress that like the things I like, I enjoyed about my time with the game, I really, really enjoyed.
Yeah.
I see a lot of reactions to what I've said about the game in previous places, focusing on the negative, which is frustrating and boring to do of people. But I don't want to negate the there is in this game that is super awesome and I think is worth seeing through. But I'm not gonna lie and say I had a brilliant time second to second. You know what I'm saying?
For sure. And also, negative commenters, I'd like to point out it was my gameplay we were watching, not Blake's. So I'm the bad one you were seeing. So, suck on that, I guess.
Also, some weird, I don't mean to get into this, but some weird mental gymnastics to hear issues with the fundamentals of a game and equating that to difficulty, which is also just you're a boring human if that's your crux of your argument. But gameplay issues are not equal to difficulty issues. And all the people fighting against the accessibility in this game, please get a hobby or real problems.
Oh, you're talking about because there's this invincibility mode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is the majority of comments under my preview is people fighting back and forth. And there are some awesome people in there that are like, this rules, and they're fighting the good fight. But there are some people with very little real problems in their life.
Yeah, I've never understood that. It's a completely optional. You literally don't have to engage with it at all.
Sorry, I know that's a soapbox, but
I remember Celeste had some optional accessibility thing where you could basically just have infinite jumps.
Mm-hmm.
And like, well, this game is hard, but if you turn all this stuff on, it becomes like kind of almost too easy. But I remember that game getting praised for that because, oh, hey, you're letting me play it. Like,
it seems really game to game.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know.
The Amnesia, the most recent one in Soma has that like adventure mode that takes out all the monsters and you can just kind of treat it like an adventure game. So it's less scary.
Or it's like a haunted house or
and
something.
And they got crap for that. Of like, oh, why even play it? And it's like, because some people love the story and like the atmosphere, but maybe just can't handle the tenseness of it.
Celeste also came out right before the discourse du jour about difficulty, which just want to reiterate the most boring conversation.
It really, especially with Celeste too, a game about finding yourself and battling your inner, like there's so much more to that than just being able to pull off a jump that I know people in my friend group who couldn't get through that game just because they haven't played as much and they shouldn't be taxed or, they shouldn't have to put a game away because they just can't do something. Like that's BS. But
hey, you know what? Let me say one more thing. All the people making fun of me under my Psychonauts thing, I beat Celeste on the Switch, the worst way to play that game because it breaks my freaking hands. Handheld mode.
Yeah.
Never once used any of those helper things. Beat it pure form.
You like that?
If you're coming in my Psychonauts article, write in your bullshit. Kick rocks for all I care. Don't read my
Kick rocks. That's an interesting. I haven't heard that one before. Kick some rocks. Yeah. That's great.
Makes me feel like I'm a soccer player.
Maybe it's a southern colloquialism.
No, I've heard it too. But like when I'm on a walk and I need something to do, I like kicking rocks every once in a while. You know?
Until somebody notices that I'm doing it, then I stop.
Yeah. Or you accidentally kick it into someone's like stroller or something. Like, ma'am, I am so sorry.
Pick up a rock, throw it at a window.
Yeah, there you go.
Great time to be alive.
Yeah.
Alex, before we move off of Psychonauts, did you have any final thoughts? Because I know you'd played it. Do you feel like you're kind of on the same page with Blake?
I think I'm higher on it. I think I ran into some of the similar things Blake was talking about. Totally not here to dismiss what he said, but I think I did it less, and I was so enamored with the world and the storytelling that it made up for that for me. You know, there were a couple of times where I made a jump, hit like the lip, right? We've all been there. You hit the lip of it, and then it's like this could either go one or two ways, and you fall off. And I'm like, oh, I think I made that. That feels like I should have made that or had a grab feature to do that with. So those definitely those problems still exist, but the whimsy and I think it really does help. I think people should play the first one if you haven't. Story wise, they have a really great intro cinematic to get you back up to speed because I never played Rhombus of Ruin. but play Psychonauts if you have it, if only to see those jumps that they've made. And I think the combat is actually a huge step in that, which I don't know if we've talked a ton about here, but now it feels like some of those psychic abilities matter, where in the first game you really could get away with Psy Blast and punching, and that was pretty much it. Whereas
I forgot half of the abilities I got in Psychonauts because I never used them.
Yeah. I'm excited to play it. I'm a huge fan of that first one, and this is the day one because I just need to see it. I will say it doesn't help that it's coming out after we've gotten a surprising wake of really good 3D platformers of this ilk between Ratchet, It Takes Two, even Astro's Playroom, which is another great kind of one of those.
Bowser's Fury too on the Switch was also really good. Yeah. But like I said, it's fun that they're like calling back to a style of platformer that doesn't really exist anymore. Even the ones you mentioned like don't really have that sort of like PS1, PS2 sort of sensibility of switching it up all the time. So yeah, out August 25th, I believe. Like we said, it's on Game Pass day one, which is very cool for people with Game Pass. Also on PC and PS4.
Yes, it is a PlayStation game. It is not. Don't think it's an Xbox exclusive, because if you have a PlayStation, you can play it.
That's right.
And I do.
And you will.
You can even play it on your PS5. It'll be out for PS5, but it's the PS4
backwards
version of it.
Yeah.
Cool, I'm going to play it.
Better believe it. Believe that.
Not where I played my preview, but that's where I'm going to play my game.
Yeah. Well, why is that? You just want to play it on the new console?
My Xbox, not long for this world. I avoid turning it on whenever I can. It's my Shudder machine. I watch my horror movies on there. Also my Criterion machine, because AJ gave me his login. Watch Wong Kar-wai's Fallen Angels the other day. But running a game on that bad boy,
it's surrounded by crows right now.
Yeah.
I imagine your Xbox is the air conditioner from the beginning of the Brave Little Toaster.
Yeah.
Yo, that's a reference. My God.
Before we head out, I did want to mention a game I played. It's a little bit older. It came out earlier this year. It's a game called Overboard. You guys familiar with this one?
No.
Isn't that a Facebook group?
That's right.
Oh my God. Overblood.
Overblood. I watched the entirety of Overblood. We have a Facebook fan group who loves our replay show. But Overboard with an exclamation point is a game that it's like a little indie game about you are a woman on a cruise ship with your husband. It's set in like 1920s or something. It's kind of old timey. And then the game starts with you like actually pushing your husband over the edge of the ship and killing him.
Hell yeah.
Then the rest of the game is you having to talk your way out of it and convince people you didn't murder him.
Oh my God.
This rules.
So no one saw you do this?
Well, I mean, I don't want to give away the whole story, but maybe some people saw. And so it's you trying to like, maybe somebody has evidence that points back to, and then kind of the story unravels too, and you learn more about like who your husband was and the other people on the ship. And it's a really interesting, like narrative based game. A single run, if you want to like play through it, can like take you like an hour. It doesn't take super long time, but the interesting thing is how just deep the narrative is and how deep the story is, because you can play it again a second time and it feels like a different experience. You can lose. So like my first time playing, I actually accidentally drank a sleeping pill. Like I was trying to like get some, not poison, but I was trying to like get somebody else to drink a sleeping pill so that they would get knocked out. And I accidentally drank it myself because I got the drinks confused. And so I woke up with handcuffs on basically because we got to dock and they're like, yeah, we found out what you did. So I don't know. It's interesting little like super neat narrative style game.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now, like the illustrations, like the art looks
that
nice.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, I'm totally.
It's like it's on. How old is it? You said it's not new. I see it's on Switch.
I believe it came out like earlier this year. Yeah, it's on Switch. It's on. I played it on PC.
Okay,
so it's around. I say check it out if you're in the mood for that kind of thing.
And I am.
Oh, this came out last month.
Like I said, it's a super old game.
June 2nd. Hey, it's out now. It looks cool. Sounds cool.
That's all. That's my PSA for everybody. Cool. Should we take a break and do some emails?
Be offended if you didn't.
All right, we're back, everybody. back to do some emails.
Keep going. Keep going.
Okay. Emails at GameInformer.com. That is not the email you want to send it into. You want to send it into podcast at GameInformer.com. That's where emails go. Get it? Makes perfect sense. We love to hear your questions, thoughts, comments, games. I don't know. Blake, what do you like to get in the email?
My favorite email is the ones I don't have to open. I can just tell I can delete them.
Okay. Well, we don't want those. You can send all those to Blake because he wants them. We want emails I can open and read and lovingly enjoy, like this first email from Eli. I think he's Eli with the book. Writes in, "Hey, Ben and the GI crew. Having recently turned 15, I gained the privilege of playing more mature titles. Congrats, Eli."
No, 7. Where do you live? Because ESRB is 17.
Well, I don't know where he lives, but in his house, apparently his parents are like, "Hey, you can play some more mature titles," according to him.
Happy quinceanera, maybe. I don't know. Whatever you did.
Eli says, "I've been burning through my summer days playing through Persona 5, God of War, Control, etc."
Get it. Okay.
It's just for him.
Shout out to Eli.
Yeah,
Eli's been waiting his whole life for this moment.
that's right.
2 out of 3 ain't bad.
I mean, God of War does feel mature for a 15-year-old, but hey, I'm not his parents. My question is, has anybody on the panel had a similar experience, and what games did you play? So what games did you guys first play when you could start playing mature games?
Bro, I remember the first one. It was hold up. It was Shogo Mobile Armor Division by Monolith Productions on my PC. There's a deep cut for all my Shogo heads out there. This game ruled. It was a mecha FPS by Monolith, who went on to do Fear, No One Lives Forever, some other games, the Mordor games. Yeah. It looked like, Alex, my bad, dog. I mean, this I think this game came out in like 2000, which is probably when I played it, and it was really cool because the art style was influenced, I think, almost specifically by Masamune Shirow, who did Appleseed and Dominion and Ghost in the Shell. So it had like that whole vibe to it. And I remember the opening level was like a mecha fight. You were in your robot, and then you flew off and you went to your space station. And I was like 5 or 6 at the time, and I could never figure out how to get to the next mission. But what you could do in the space station, you could freely explore. You could get guns. So I'd just be a little psychopath, and I'd kill everyone. And they would burst into these awesome late 90s, early 2000s gory chunks that games used to have, where it kind of just looks like you squished a tomato. I was all about it. I loved that game. I not too long ago, after probably like 15 years, I pulled up some footage of it and watched it. Horrendous looking, just like unbelievably bad looking. Would not play it now if my life depended on it, but I have very fond memories of that game being the first M-rated game I ever played.
Congrats, man.
God,
Shouts out to Shogo. Bring it back.
Yeah, it's weird being a child of the 90s. It the boring answer for me would be like the first Mortal Kombat, but that's also like pre ESRB. So like parents at that time maybe didn't know, like they just didn't have the same tools to like inform themselves that just video games are video games. So like I remember when that first MK cabinet came out, I was like at a flea market and I was like very little. And I saw it. I was like, that looks cool. I don't know what it is. I'm like going showing my mom, like, I need quarters to play this, please. And she probably raised an eyebrow at it, but didn't like say anything. I don't remember her ever objecting, like, are you sure? She's like, sure. And then eventually bought me like the Genesis ports of like that game and MK2 and 3.
Hell yeah.
So like I've never been barred from playing mature games. Like even as a kid, I played stuff like Metal Gear, Siphon Filter, like stuff that would be considered mature. But I'd say mentally, the first time where I started to question, like, man, I feel like this could mess me up was when GTA 3 came out. Because I was in middle school, about to go into high school, and just like had never, like a lot of people, I'd never played anything with that amount of just freedom. Yeah. And so I was just going around just wreaking absolute havoc. And I would daydream in school about like the things I was going to try to do when I got home. I was like, I'm going to like stack up a bunch of cars in an intersection and then just unleash a rocket and blow all these people up. That's crazy. Haha. And then I think I started to wonder, like, am I like, could this mess me up? Like, probably not, because I know I have a good handle on reality, but I was like starting to become self-aware of like, wow, I'm really excited to do some pretty messed up stuff. But I kept doing it anyway, and I played all those games. But so yeah, we'll say like maybe psychologically, maybe GTA 3, even though I played a bunch of bad stuff before it. So
yeah. The year gentleman was 2005, I think. Whenever the 360 came out. Great year. Fifth grade, bumbling around, still couldn't talk to girls, whole thing. That's what I'm here to do. And let me preface by saying I love my parents. They're very great. They take care of me. Still see them every week. Wonderful people. They love Blake more than me. It's a whole thing. Don't need to get into it. We'll get to that. That being said, they drank a little bit of the Kool-Aid. Games could be melting your mind, what have you, That made me want to play bad games even more, or mature games even more. So I think everyone has this friend, right, whose parents were a little more laxed. So my buddy, we knew when we were going over there, we were getting to play Halo 2 and Gears of War. In 2006, we were in 6th grade, and it was heaven. You kidding me? 6th grader getting to chainsaw weird alien monsters in half.
Yes,
those were the times, baby. Those were the times. And then Halo 2 was, that first taste of multiplayer like that. Like, because we played a lot of Nightfire as kids. My parents let us play violent games that like they knew the license of, so like James Bond or Fantastic Four, like that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? So, but when we got to go over to my buddy Andy's place, man, like those chainsaws started revving and it was on, getting the energy sword out, baby, all day, like all day, all night, staying up. It was a beautiful thing. It was a time to be alive.
God, that rules. Not too long ago, I went to see a friend of the show, AJ Moser, and we sat in his apartment butt to butt on that couch and dual screen side, whatever it's called, the very first Gears of War. Oh my god,
so good. That game, I don't know, I'd be curious to go back and play it today, but there was just such you just felt like a badass, baby. It was so great.
Hey, games are fun, man. But yeah, listen to your parents if they don't think you're ready. But yeah, hey, congrats, Eli.
Yeah,
hey.
Play Shogo.
What a fun time to be alive. We all have those stories, and that interesting.
Play Shogo.
All right, Addison from Jersey writes in, says, I just wanted to say thank you for the entertaining podcast every Thursday. I started listening this past spring, and you all have definitely helped my closing shifts at work go faster.
Thank you.
Cool. Hope closing shifts going well, Addison. Get that stuff stocked. I don't know what you do.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the recent shift in video game adaptations? The Witcher show, Sonic movie, Mortal Kombat film, and more have been pretty good to watch, in my opinion. But do you hope they make more things like these? And what would you guys want to see if they made more?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I feel like people forget the pre-MCU days, right? Where Spider-Man was basic, and the first 2 X-Men movies were basically the highlights. Because we had Daredevil and we had,
hey man, Blade came before those.
Blade
ruled.
True. Blade was good. Yeah. Blade was good. We also had the first Hulk movie as a rebuttal to that. So,
Punisher movie?
I guess my point is we were in an era back then where they were still figuring out the formula. And I feel like we've been in that formula for a while with video games movies, where it's like, what makes these good? And I actually think the answer, and what I'm excited to see, is I think the answer is more TV shows than movies. I think condensing 30 to 50 to 100-hour experiences into a movie is a daunting task, even if you do know and love the source material, right? So the fact that creators are now, it also helps that TV contracts are thick these days, and like that's where a lot of the creation is going in that industry. But I think doing a 10-episode run for multiple seasons makes more sense for these properties than trying to do just like a 2-hour movie. And I think that's going to not be gangbusters, but do a lot for the medium and push this in the direction I think we all want to see it go.
Yeah, like it feels like we're in something of a renaissance of this stuff. Because like I grew up watching all those terrible video game movies, with the exception of the first Mortal Kombat, which is still the best. And yeah, like you said, like I think the shift to TV is better for some properties, but I think I'm also most excited to see adaptations of games that aren't as story driven. Because I think I would rather see something like Sonic is a good example where like, yes, Sonic has like a lot of lore, especially if you get into like the nitty gritty of like the comics and some of the 3D games where they try to tell like a deeper story. But like that first movie is really just drawing from like those early Genesis games where the story was just like, I don't know, Eggman's turning animals into robots, stop them. And so that kind of gives the creator a chance to kind of fill in the gaps a bit. And like, there's a thin line between like adding your own stuff and sticking to the source material. But I think that movie in particular did a good job of balancing that to where something like The Last of Us for HBO, which I am excited for, but because Last of Us is basically already a movie/TV show, tough. It's hard not to directly compare it to the game because like moment to moment, you know what I mean? And I think that show is kind of doing some of its own stuff, but it is telling that same story.
Which ultimately I think is a disservice because we've seen that story, right? Like I would be curious to hear more about the side stories of Joel and Ellie in this context, but
or just new characters. I'd rather just be in that world with just completely different characters because then you kind of, for me, you get the best of both worlds, right? And it's one reason why I'm excited for that Mario movie that Illumination is making. Right. It's like Mario's kind of a blank canvas in terms of like plot and stuff. But I'm excited. I think Illumination is a fun studio. Despicable Me, Secret Life of Pets, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So I think they'll do a good job with that film in terms of capturing the fun of Mario without hopefully not being too up its butt about like lore and storytelling the way that maybe that first live action movie just went all off the rails, which that movie's an example of how to do your own stuff in a bad way. So yeah, I think we're on a good roll right now, and I think that's what I'm most excited for. Like pick properties that are maybe less lore heavy and more, and kind of give you a chance to fill in the gaps yourself. And
that like first Mario movie, kind of fun to go back and watch now, though.
It is fun. It is a good, like so bad it's good.
It's so weird that was the direction they went with that.
They also just released the director's cut of it. Someone asking the director for like his vision of it, and they added it. And I watched a little bit, and it is even more bizarre than before, which I didn't know was possible.
We did a commentary track for it a long, long time ago. I don't even know if it's still up anywhere, but GI did a commentary track. So if you can find it, I don't know. Shoot it to me. I want to know if it's still up. But
wasn't the story is that Bob Hoskins said, like up to his death, that was the only movie he regretted making?
I think so.
Yeah, he was like drunk, I think, for part of it. Like he and John Leguizamo were just doing shots, I think, off screen before the filming started. Like didn't he break a hand? He broke a hand or a foot or something during filming.
Something like that.
All those punching those boxes,
That's why, yeah.
That happened a lot in that movie.
Here's the thing you might not know about me, fellas. Absolutely love video game movies. I will watch any and all that I can. Think some are good. Silent Hill movie, pretty good. I have the Resident Evil Blu-ray 6-disc collector's edition.
The Criterion Collection.
Every Resident Evil movie worth watching except for the second one. Resident Evil 3 Extinction, genuinely a rad movie.
Yeah, that second one was with Nemesis, right?
Yeah, that movie is
that one's pretty bad.
Dog water.
Do you think they're like legit good movies just because they're like good movies, or do you think they're like good adaptations? Like if they were called
no.
Zombie Death 2.
They're not they're not adaptations, and I think that's actually what I think is cool about it is Paul W.S. Anderson, the king, a god amongst men, talk get hit. He took a universe and made it his own thing. Like he used kind of the basis of Resident Evil and then just went and did his own like story with it. And it became the sci-fi epic that was dumb and schlocky and so fun. And that's actually what I like about that's the adaptations I like, are new visions for things. I like don't really care to see a story I've already seen.
Yeah.
I mean, Silent Hill, I think, is a good movie, but like I could have done with a different story. You know, I thought Mortal Kombat was bafflingly bad, but I like that it kind of did its own thing. You know,
which Mortal Kombat?
the new one.
Okay, I'll let you live.
But movies that kind of regurgitate stories but truncate them to fit a runtime aren't as interesting to me or as good. An example I always come back to is the Yakuza movie by Takashi Miike. That's probably my favorite director, and that's probably one of my favorite game series. I think that movie's unwatchable because it's trying to fit a 50-hour story into a hour and a half action movie, and it's just. But something like Resident Evil, Mortal Kombat, even though I didn't care for it, Sonic, the new Sonic, and the anime Sonic movie, which I think is really cool from the early 2000s.
You're actually touching on something that I feel pretty strongly about, and not to belabor this point, but you talk about like adaptations. I think comic books, novels, like those things are storytelling mediums, so it's easy. Everything takes work, but it's easier, I think, to actually translate that into a film because you're dealing with story to story. The thing about games is they're not primarily a storytelling medium. Like they can tell good stories, and I think we have good stories in the medium. Yeah. But like what makes games cool is they're interactive. Like you are interacting with it. So you look at the BioShock story, that narrative, that works because you are playing the game and you're interacting with it.
Yeah.
If you just take BioShock and try to adapt that into a film, that narrative, that like big twist that I won't spoil if you haven't played it, but that big twist just kind of falls flat if you're not interacting with the thing.
Is that movie still happening?
I don't know.
It's like maybe, but no.
It's a cool world and cool. They did cool world building with that, just like they did with Last of Us. But like when that Last of Us show, for example, comes out, like I don't know if I'll be as invested in that.
Yeah,
because I'm not playing it.
And I think that's like I'm not married to any IP or care enough about any IP to like care about the accuracy of an adaptation. Like it is,
it's not like sacred to you.
Yeah, like I don't own that. I don't care what someone does with it. But someone taking it and being like, well, this is my thing with it. This is a movie in that world is so much more fascinating to me, even when it sucks. Like it's I'd rather engage with that.
I agree, but I think that's a change for me because as a kid growing up, when I heard like they're gonna do a Gears of War movie, I wanted that to actively be Marcus and Dom going through fighting the Krill. Like I wanted that to capture what I loved about those games, and I think as I've gotten older, I understand now that it's. I mean, like I think Ben, you hit the nail on the head. Like that's an experience that you're just gonna feel in game, and I think if you take these characters and do different things with them, I think there's a more interesting world out there. But I think that's a maturity thing. Like for me personally, anyways.
Yeah, Alex, what if I told you that Dave Bautista really wants?
Bro, he wants that more than anything I've ever seen. And you know what? Give Dave Bautista his time in the sun.
Also, didn't he say that he was kind of done with like shirtless scenes and like he kind of wanted to stop like working out so hard for films?
I mean, Marcus isn't shirtless. He's got that giant armor vest thing.
He literally,
he really wants to be Marcus Phoenix.
He turned down what big movie was it? He turned down a movie because he's like,
let me talk to you. Squad for Army of the Dead.
But he said there was a story I think IGN had that he turned down like a big tentpole movie. Fast and Furious, is that what it was? Yeah. To pitch his Gears movie. And then they're like, no, we're going to make Fast and Furious, but thanks, maybe? I don't know. Get out of here.
I can respect that. I'm not a Fast and Furious fan, but I would like to see Batista in a Gears movie. I mean, he's already in the game.
And I mean, now that John Cena's in the Fast franchise, they got to add Batista and just have like one with all like Rock, Batista, and John Cena, right? Yeah. Doesn't that have to happen?
He could be Dom's other brother that you didn't know about.
That's right. That's all I want to see. And Blake agrees with us. Yeah. Okay, next email. Kid from
Fast and Furious.
What are you guys doing? Why are you bothering with your lives? You're not watching Fast and Furious.
You don't like family?
Yeah, what's
I've had cancer twice, and I'm just acutely aware of my mortality. So
you know what?
I
Fast
just-
and Furious, it can kill cancer. That's how good it is.
That's how they bill it.
The box quote.
I sleep.
I'm not a doctor. Please don't quote me on that. All right. Kid from Athens, Georgia says, so me and my wife introduced our beautiful little girl into this world, and her name is Zelda.
Oh, cool.
Congratulations, kid.
Hey,
Also, does that mean he needs to change his name? Because he's no longer the kid?
Yeah, it was funny when you said kid from Athens, Georgia. I was like, oh, just a kid, didn't want to put their name. But then you're like married, and I was like, this child's married.
there's some weird
Oh,
laws in
man,
Athens,
Georgia.
Georgia.
Yeah, he's got 2 D's, so Kiddd. Anyway,
Hmm.
I like the name, actually. It's a cool
Can't say
name.
that.
So kid says, so here's the confession. I have never beaten a Zelda game in my life. On top of that, I only have played 2 of who knows how many Zelda games. So he's never beaten any, but he's played 2, but never beaten any.
So
So my
more of
question is, do I need to like change your name now that the secret's out? Also, what are some of your gaming confessions?
So wait, she is named after Prince because Zelda is just a regular name.
I mean,
Yeah.
presumably,
Just change your story. It's named after the grandma from Pet Cemetery.
Or
I'm sure
Zelda
that'll go
Fitzgerald.
over real well.
People will know
Zelda
that one.
Williams.
Yeah.
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 Oh, Zelda Williams
Not-
is named after Princess Zelda.
I know, but his daughter wouldn't be named after the princess from the game. He'd be named after Zelda Williams, who was named after the princess from the game.
Okay, so it's like indirectly. you're
Yeah,
still leaving
exactly.
in there. Gotcha.
Or if anyone asks, what inspired you to name her Zelda? Say, mind your own business. It doesn't matter.
Kick rocks.
Kid, yeah. kick
my
rocks.
original name for her was Nunya.
Oh,
Bang.
yeah. This is my daughter Nunya Bofa.
But yes, on to the question.
I think that's her middle name. He didn't specify, but
Her middle name is Zelda. I've never played this series, whatever her last name is.
Last name Sugma.
So yeah, gaming confessions, right?
wow, Blake, you're on a roll tonight. Yeah, I think you do not need to change your name. It's a great name. I love the name. But yeah, anybody have some confessions?
I guess it's like it's not necessarily games we haven't played, just embarrassing gaming things. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm trying to. This might be embarrassing to some. It worked out, but like, I grew up a Nintendo kid. Like my first system was an NES, and then I had an SNES, even though I had a Genesis too. But then when the N64 was coming out, immediately I was like, oh, I got to get that. But then the PlayStation came along, and I saw that the PlayStation played CDs, and literally I wanted it just for that alone. Like an unproven platform from an unproven company versus what the tried and true favorite of Nintendo. But I saw the disc and I was like, that is the future. That looks like some Jetsons like stuff that I want in my house. And so I told my mom, like, I want, because I couldn't have both. And I was like, I want that one. And that is the only reason I got into PlayStation over that stupid thing. Like all the kids were talking about like different games. I was like, no, this one has CDs. It's better. That's all games. That's what
That's your confession? Like, I don't know what you're
I don't know,
absolved, son. Like, there's
I mean, it worked out, but it sounds super stupid in hindsight to pick a system for that reason. I mean, I don't know. If we're getting into series, I'm a stealth fan, but I've never touched a Splinter Cell game for some reason.
Why?
Huh.
Well, I
Why?
think some of it was that I never had the original Xbox, and I mean they were on PlayStation, but I wanted to play on the Xbox because it was better there. 'Cause,
Yeah.
the lighting looked better and all that stuff. But yeah, to this day, I've never touched any of those. So.
There's like all kinds of things. Like I've never played Ocarina of Time or whatever, but like I don't care. I don't feel like that's a confession. I didn't
play
the game.
Ocarina till like college.
Yeah, like who cares what you have or haven't played? It doesn't matter.
I think it's just he was like, well, I named my kid after.
Well,
if you're
Zelda, then it's
posing,
like,
but
if you're posing, if you're saying like I'm a huge Zelda fan
Yeah.
and that's why I'm doing this,
it's like the thing where like I remember when UFC got big and my friends were really into like the tap out shirts and like the affliction shirts and whatever, and they were trying to get me to get one, even though I didn't care for MMA. And I was like, well, no, I'm not going to wear that because I don't watch. It seems like a poser move, right? Like I don't watch this, and that's and they're like, who's going to know? And it's like, no, can't do it.
I have
Can't do
one
it.
though. All right, take a journey with me back to 2010, 2011. Friend of mine who will go unnamed. Wonderful soul, still one of my best friends. to this day. Let me borrow his copy of Gears of War 2. I played the hell out of it. Had a great time. Amazing game. The best Gears of War game probably there's ever been.
Okay.
You know, I was a kid. I was a child. I didn't have a job.
Young man.
No income.
None.
And I was a bit of a rebel rouser, a little bit of a devil without a cause. I had no money for cigarettes.
No.
And folks, I took his copy of Gears of War 2. And I took it to my future employer, GameStop. And I sold his copy of Gears of War 2.
How much you get for it?
Probably like $4. I didn't have the case.
You got like a pack of smokes out of that, probably.
Well, yeah, I live in Kentucky. It's real cheap here. It's nice. It's a cash
Like,
crop.
without your friend's consent.
Yeah, well, hold on. The story's not over. I got the money. I got my cousin, who was 18, to buy me a pack of cigarettes. Broke the law in this whole process. Did contribute to the company that would one day pay my salary. So
Okay.
that part's good. Bought the Marlboro Reds. Smoked them. Told him, a couple weeks later.
And to be clear,
maybe a
you
month
don't
or
work
two.
for Marlboro. That's not the company you're talking about.
No. Maybe a month or two later.
So you told him.
Friend asks me, hey, I don't really need it back, but like, are you done playing Gears of War 2? And I was like, man, yeah, I lost it.
Wait, so somehow he knew you took it?
No, he let me borrow it.
Oh, he let you. I thought you stole it for some reason.
No.
Okay.
No.
It's
He
not
let me
that
borrow it,
bad.
and I sold it.
Okay. I mean, that
And
is
then-
stealing.
10 years later, still never told him.
He still doesn't know.
Does he listen to the show?
Oh, probably not.
The first time he's learning about this.
We're gonna share this with him.
I think we got him, man.
Well, that's my gaming confession. Also, I've never played Half-Life 2, I guess.
That's
get
the bad
the-
thing. Boo Blake.
Yeah,
that's the boo one. Yeah.
Oh boy, you really got some work to do.
Will we get striked if we have Usher's confessions playing during this?
I
segment?
sang that earlier. No one commented on it.
I didn't hear it.
I do. Mine's not as good as Blake's, but I remember. Was it Ruby and Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire? Is that what came out together?
Yep.
And I wanted to get Sapphire, and my buddy was like, "Hey, I'm going to the store." We were at like the game store, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to buy one. Which one do you think I should buy?" And I was like, "You should get Ruby," because I wanted him to get Ruby, and then we could like trade stuff because I wanted Sapphire.
Mhm.
And then he's like, "Are you sure I should get Ruby? Like that's the one. That's the better one." Because I think that's how he framed it. He said, like, which one's the better one? I was like, they're both really the same. But you should get Ruby because Ruby's great. That's the better one. That's the one I would get, is what I said.
Wow.
And then he ended up buying them both and then giving me Ruby as like a gift. I was like, what? I was like, oh, no, I kind of want Sapphire, though. And then I felt bad for lying to him because I came back and like I ended up getting the game I didn't want.
That's instant karma right there.
Yep, right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you deserved that.
That's right.
Also, I like Ruby better. Groudon versus Kyogre. Groudon all day, baby.
Hey,
one more.
maybe I'm the real winner.
Probably
line,
one more
yeah.
confession.
Hmm.
That story I told was very painful for me to reveal that. But I've actually told that on another podcast before Game Query. So sorry, I used recycled content. for
Oh
you.
my
gosh,
god.
dude. Hey, you know that story I just told?
Mhm.
That was a lie. I have to confess that was an entire lie.
Is
No,
your
that
actual-
was the lie.
Uh,
Was that? It was a lie. It was a true story.
It's a tangled web of lies that I just
I
can't
mean,
keep up with.
You guys are so nice. I've done the innocent thing where you accidentally steal games because someone lets you borrow them and then they like move away before they get it back. So you're like, I guess I own this now. I
Yeah.
have quite a few games that I have acquired because of that.
Alex, do you have any gaming confessions?
I don't know if anything can top what's been said here. I imagine being my father for a second. Just
And I can.
Hi,
hearing
son.
Perfect. Wow, there you go.
You're getting tall.
Dad?
Here's his beloved boy, his firstborn, crying downstairs. Runs down to see what the matter is.
What are you
My-
crying for?
Shut up, kid.
My dad was much nicer than both of you. He's like,
I know.
"What's wrong? What's happening?" And I'm crying because some older, like 8th grader asshole like scammed me out of my Charmander when I was a kid when we were playing Pokemon Yellow, and I'm balling because I realized I can't get this thing back. He gave me like
I want a name.
I actually remember the name. I'm not going to put him on blast though.
Where he live?
Dox him.
No, I can't do it. I got to be the bigger man. That's what that taught me. Be the bigger person. I think he sent me Eradicate or something like that. Like something dookie, you know?
Oh, did he say, what did he say he was going to trade you? Like, how did he trick you?
It was this thing. I don't remember the exact details, but he was like, this is like, I'm going to give you something great. I just need this little stupid little Charmander, you know?
Stupid little Charmander.
And I was like, oh, we get it at the beginning. I don't think I realized at the time that I couldn't get it back because he probably had like blue version where he picked, you know, I guess it didn't matter, but he probably had like Blastoise or Squirtle or something like that. One of the Charizard came at me, little kindergartner, like just, you know, and then I was scared of 8th graders ever since. That was those even as an 8th grader, I was scared of myself. But I just remember crying in the basement because I couldn't have my Charmander back, and I didn't know
how did your dad help you out?
He didn't. He just like kind of patted me on the shoulder. It was like, I have no concept of what this child is talking about.
It's just like, you want to go to the park or something? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Play sports. don't worry about this.
Like, did he get this kid's number and then cut like a Taken style promo over the phone threatening this kid?
No, because it was a video game and it was a man who didn't understand the connection a boy has with his Pokemon.
I have a set of very specific skills that have nothing to do with video games.
If you give my son back his Charizard, that'll be the end of it.
So yeah, that's me. That's my, I guess, confession that I cried over my Charmander. So there you go.
Awesome. All right, final email. Tom H from Illinois writes in and says, I'm curious what popular game or series of games you do not care for. Let's see. Does people talking about Pokemon make your eyes glaze over? Does Overwatch do nothing for you? I would love to hear your response.
Souls
Probably.
games.
Oh.
I feel like we've answered versions of this question a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, probably most MOBAs.
I was going to say anything
all
MOBA related.
basically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's a trend that I'm glad is basically over, but yeah.
Pokemon Unite's here.
Yeah, in a
basically it's over. It's done.
Strategy games.
Yeah.
I love strategy games. He mentioned Overwatch, which to be fair, I've probably only played like 2 matches of Overwatch. It's like an embarrassing little amount. I don't know. Didn't care. Same with Fortnite. I played like
not a Fortnite guy.
2 battle royales. I don't know. It's just, I don't know, not what I want to like spend my time with. I don't think I get crazy about multiplayer for multiplayer's sake. I think I want to have like, I like having a narrative with it, and I mean, you can hang out with friends and have a good time. But you know, I just don't like friends.
Fair.
I think a lot of those
overrated.
A lot of those niche
show.
sort of anime games, like Rune Factory is probably like number one. Whenever I see one of those or somebody talks to me, I just like, my soul departs my body for a period until they're done.
Yeah.
Actually,
Souls games probably the biggest one for me. It just does nothing. Like, if you enjoy chewing on gravel, that's good for you, but like, I don't want to put myself through that.
Is that what a Souls game is?
Well, that's why he has no cavities, because he's not chewing gravel.
Yeah, if you like just like punching yourself in the face over and over, I'm happy for you, but like, I'm good. I'm gonna pass on all this.
I guess the same for sports games too. Like, I can play some, like I can play Madden and be competent at it, but like I don't watch sports at all in real life. So yeah, like it's like, this is like, I can recognize like, yeah, this plays well and I'm having like a decent time with it, but I have no interest also at the same time.
For sure.
Hey, Blake, you said like you don't like punching yourself in the face over and over again. But like earlier in this podcast, you talked about how you play hard games. Like you bragged about beating Celeste on without any like cheats.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. The important distinction, the difference between Celeste and the Souls games is Celeste is good.
Okay. See, that was the piece I was missing.
Yeah.
This is you've had your fair share of spicy episodes on the GI show. I think this one is the habanero of them all. Like we're getting into ghost pepper territory.
Look, you know, I see what people say. I can swing back.
It,
you know?
Did you wake up on the wrong side of bed this morning? Like something happened this morning that you're just not recovering from?
No, actually, I woke up this morning and Reagan's my dog. She
And love her.
She was already awake, and she was just like looking at me, waiting for me to get up, and it was so cute. My little heart.
Aw,
melted.
that's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll give you.
So you had a good day, even
Yeah.
Well, it was all downhill from there.
because you started doing this podcast. I take it. Yeah, I mean, so here's my thing: is like, oh, hey, I don't like this stuff.
Mhm.
Give a something that's like the most popular version of that a try, because I thought that I didn't like roguelikes for a long time, but then I got into Dead Cells, I got into Hades. Like, I think there are versions of that I do like. It just has to be done really well.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
was not a tactics guy, and then I played Gears Tactics and Mario v Rabbids, and I was like, oh, this is fun. I really like this. I like what's going on here. So
I'm not a racing sim guy. Like I like racing games, but they got to be kind of arcadey and goofy. But like Forza Horizon 4 was like one of my top 10 games when it came out. And granted, that's basically an open world RPG with cars, but like it is still more like grounded racing mechanically. And I had a blast with that.
One thing I've noticed recently, I don't know if y'all are the same way, is like games that I'm not interested in playing, I will actually find myself watching streams of for extended periods of time. A friend of mine the other day was streaming the new F1 game, and like there's no universe where I would care about that. And I watched his stream for probably an hour, just like so into it. So that has become like a new way for me to kind of engage with games I otherwise wouldn't care about, because it takes out the it takes out the need for me to actively participate and care about it in that way, and I can kind of enjoy someone else enjoying it.
I kind of get that, because like I did that for games that are just not fun to play anymore, like the original Wasteland, or somebody will probably come at me for this, but like Baldur's Gate. I just don't think like those games are fun to play today. I'm sure they were great for the time, but they're just it's hard to like look at them without rose-colored glasses these days. But there's something there that's kind of like, I get like the adventure you were on. So like watching some Let's Plays or people talk about this game and like why it was so cool, like that I do like. So it is fun to look at a game through another person's lens.
Especially someone that's like an expertise in that. There's something like alluring about like this person knows this genre or this series like up, down, all around. And there's something fast about having that kind of person explain to you why it's good.
Yeah, Smash Bros. Another one. I like Smash Bros. I enjoy playing it, but like watching high level Smash Bros. Just like playing at a level I never will, I find like way more compelling as a way to engage with that specific game.
Yeah, the farming games, like Farming Simulator, same thing. I remember I took an E3 appointment for one of them like years ago, and like had not played that game. I kind of just I drew the short straw on that basically.
Yeah.
But like I talked to the dev and I wanted to know like what is the appeal of these games? Like what is the culture? What is the audience? Like what does that look like? And he like very eloquently explained to me what the appeal of these games are based on the audience. And it's like, okay, I still would never play this, but I understand now.
Yeah.
Why people would be into this of like, oh, it's relaxing. People get really nerdy about the farming equipment and the tools and how like in like a Gran Turismo sense of like they gotta perform accurately and all that stuff. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I get that. I could see that. That's cool.
Yeah, the only one I can't seem to figure that out with Souls games.
Maybe try Death's Door. It has a little bit of that Souls-like element to it. But
this man just wants the heat at this point. He's just.
All right.
No, actually, I will
Some
say,
people want to watch the world burn.
I will say, of their games, Bloodborne is the only one I was like genuinely bummed I didn't like, because I think that world is really, really cool. I just like I don't vibe. It's not even the difficulty; it's the roguelikeness of it, where it like takes away some amount of progression that drives me.
Like the penalty is too severe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like the difficulty. It was my same issue with Returnal, where I'm like, I like this difficulty, but the failure is too much for me. I'm not.
Also, I gotta leave my console. When I'm playing this.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's the show. Thanks for writing in. Please write in more emails to podcast@gameinformer.com. That is definitely the email we want you to send them to. And that brings us to the last segment of the show. Well, segment we like to call Get Wrecked.
Son.
Marcus, you got anything you want to recommend?
Yeah, let's get wrecked. So, John Carson wrote a really fun feature called Smash Hits, franchises deserving of the Smash Bros. Treatment. And it's pretty much him picking different sort of media franchises or universe that would benefit, like off the heels of the Nickelodeon Smash Brothers announcement, like what other universes could benefit from like that kind of thing. And I thought it was a really fun read. He called out like Disney with everything that they own. Of course, for me as a wrestling fan, the idea of pro wrestling of like, hey, what if a game with every wrestling company just coming together? Because that kind of happens now, but like go all the way with it. And other cool examples like the Dark Universe. So yeah, that's a fun list that he put together. So yeah, you should go check that out.
Yeah, that is good. Alex.
Dig this, you cool cats and kittens. That's a Tiger King reference. I don't know where that came from. That was last year. Not recommending Tiger King, even though that was a wild watch. But Mr. Van Aken and I got together and we saw that the Steam Deck had came out, and we did a little bit different of a reaction video. Alex kind of took center stage and kind of listed off what this thing was, what the potential of it is, and that kind of stuff. And I edited it together. And I think it's a really good, informative look at what the Steam Deck is, which is Valve's Switch, basically, for those not in the know. So we played with the format and included some B-roll and stuff like that. And I think it's a good look if you're still not sure what the Steam Deck is, which version you should buy is. Obviously, it's a little late to get out on the pre-orders, but if you're curious about that thing at all, definitely look that up. I think it's called "What is the Steam Deck" or something like that. It's pretty recent in our listing, so if you go to youtube.com/Game Informer, it should be
it's a good one to bring up. We didn't talk about it much on the show, but Steam Deck looks neat. So if you want more content from us on it, check that out for sure. Blake.
Yo, check this out, Ben. Don't know if you've heard, Game Informer got a new hire, Jill Grope. So there's not a specific article, video, this, that, or the other. I just want to recommend everybody go check out Jill Grope. She's awesome. I was a big fan of whenever she would be on the MinMax show. I'd always get stoked to be like, want to hear what Jill has to say. So very excited that we have hired her, and for the foreseeable future will be the home of her work. So everybody go find her on Twitter, wish her congratulations, and click on everything she writes, and subscribe to our magazine so you can read all the stuff she writes there.
Yeah,
well.
if you type in Jill Grote on Game Informer, you actually will find a bunch of articles from her because she was an intern previously. So she does have stuff on our site already that you could check out.
Right.
Intern. It's a beautiful thing.
Extremely, extremely excited to have her.
That's right.
So that's my recommendation.
Interns are taking over. I'm outnumbered, so I'm just going to go here. I did want to recommend, Leanna Rupert wrote a thing, Best Bars in Gaming, and why it's more than just on what's on the menu. I know, Blake, you read this thing, right?
I contributed to it, actually. I wrote a couple graphs for it.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting to have your lens on it, too, as somebody who, is sober now. But bars, even if you don't drink, like bars are like have an interesting atmosphere, and we highlight several games that have bars with very interesting atmospheres. There you go. Check it out.
Thing.
That brings us to the end of the show. Thanks, everybody, for being on. Thank you out there for watching or listening to this episode of the show. Please like and subscribe to our magazine, and come back next week. We'll have another episode. Till then, game on.
All the things I said, those were just jokes, by the way.